Hello, and welcome back to another week in the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar Hoke here, Tom Jacobs. How are we doing after the PGA Championship, my friend?
Yeah, I think I'd be doing better if Rose didn't eject. But I say eject, like he still hung around. He was still like top 10, right? But like he was just on the path to a really good week, and I really liked him all the way along. Like he could have been 5 under going into about 9 yesterday, and just the putter let him down, and then just kind of lost it. And then of course Victor Powers is iron into the bunker on 16, and all of a sudden we've got a no contest at the end there. But to be honest, I think the way that Brooks played, it was probably the same result regardless. Obviously, it probably would have just been one shot win rather than anything else. But like, I still think Brooks would have won that tournament. So I thought it was a really good tournament. I thought it was really exciting. I thought we had a couple of really promising performances from a couple of the guys that we love and talk about an awful lot. Victor Perez surprised me. We didn't necessarily spend so much time talking about him last week. Skipped over him, but Minwoo Lee played well. Ryan Fox played well, and the biggest takeaway I saw from that is both of them have now got special temporary membership in the PGA Tour. Which, when you take those two away, Victor Perez at the end of the year, Ollison at the end of the year, probably Yannick Paul. It's a tough scene right now.
Yeah, I'll stick on the first points, right? I do think there was some guys there that we highlighted in which weren't talked on all that much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Minwoo. Minwoo's ceiling is so high. Like, he's going to steal a PGA Tour win. Like, he's going to out of nowhere, coming off 4 miscuts. He is just like Hideyama in that way where they can hang with the best of them. Now, I would say even at the majors, like, maybe Minwoo might struggle on the PGA Tour in consistency because his game is not made for potentially that type of golf, but it's made for what we saw last week. And, I'm excited for him. And that was somebody who, I mean, he's 1% owned. Herbert makes the cut at low ownership. Fox, bouncing back like that. I thought
good, yeah.
it was really fun for guys that we think of. And if we would have expanded out our coverage to all DP World Tour eligible Ryder Cup guys or European Ryder Cup guys, I know you would have talked Victor Hovland. So you had a quality week. Brooks was too much in the end. Somebody that, it's with a weird emotion that victory was yesterday. Betting him and being one of his biggest fans, to me, like him being one of my favorite golfers, yesterday definitely felt different than it did in the past when it was kind of shock the world type of one. So still kind of digesting it. But of course, I think it's just really, really cool to see that, knowing what we saw, kind of his personal side. So super excited for Brooks. I don't think it means anything from the Live Tour's regard. And that's almost, just as sweet as he is, just the individual player showing up there. And that's kind of the way I'm just going to move forward with these Live guys when we're down to our events.
So I think the thing is, when we say it doesn't mean anything for Live Tour, like it doesn't better the Live Tour. It doesn't make that any more appealing or anything like that, right? But what it does do is gives them, and I think this has already happened after the Masters and probably a little bit even at St Andrews already. Like, it kind of validates that they're still competitive. They're still the players that they were before, and they're still going to be the select, because out of the 48 players, there's still only sort of 10 players like this that we're talking about, right? But like, very much because people can't see the stats week to week on these players, they can't get over the fact they made a decision to do what they do, which is absolutely fine. That's people's prerogative and things like that. But again, Koepka first, Bryson fourth, Cam Smith ninth, Patrick Reed 18th, like Pereira 18th as well. Like, eventually you've just got to get to the point where you just accept that they're still the same players, right? And actually, probably when you look at it, I think Matt that I spoke to last week made a good point that like the Live schedule actually works out really well for this major, like the lead up to it, and actually probably better prepared than some of the PGA Tour guys. So it's going to be interesting now how they handicap the US Open. I don't know if they're now going to suddenly overvalue these Live guys compared to how they have done over the last 2 majors just because of what Brooks did. But if there's still some value on some of these guys like Reeds and the Pereiras and things like that what they were before, then there's still money to be made, I think.
Yeah, it's just impossible to price Live golf. Like, it's just because if Brooks would have had that lead-in form on the PGA Tour, he's He's 12.
Yeah,
He's 14.
exactly. Yeah.
Right. It's just, so you could say he was the most undervalued golfer in the field. He was the most over golfer valued in the field, right? Like,
Yeah.
you get it from all directions. So, but no, I mean, the quality, I thought Oak Hill absolutely delivered. That's the type of golf that I enjoy, just absolute brute tests. And even though Brooks plays as boring as it gets when it comes to
Yeah.
that type of golf, it's how it needs to be done. And I was impressed. I was impressed by some of our DP World Tour guys. I thought they fought well.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it was a good. I thought, like, I feel a lot more positive about the European Ryder Cup team today than I did 2 or 3 months ago. Like, I still don't think they can win in Rome. But when you look at it, and you've got Victor in second, and really, I thought made a real good account of himself. Rory was 7th, obviously, after a really tough start. Sepp Straka, if he's going to be in the hit list, is 7th. Rose 9th. Lowry 12th. Perez 12th. Hatton 15th after shooting 42 on the front 9 on Thursday. Fleetwood inside the top 20 as well. So actually, it's a really, really positive thing. And I think we kind of alluded to that. It was going to be a good major for English players in particular. And, Rose, Fleetwood, and Hatton were all in the top 20. So it's not a complete surprise, really. But yeah, I think it was. I thought it was a really good course. I really enjoyed it. And there's been some criticisms of it, and I think some of them are fair and some probably a little bit harsh. Like, I do think it would have been more exciting to have maybe a bit more of a reachable par 5 at times, and I get why some people didn't like the drivable par 4, but I loved pretty much all of it. I think Victor let himself down a little bit with the drive yesterday in key moments, and he missed a 5-footer on the front 9 to really put the pressure on. But other than that, it really was just Brooks being too good. So that's been the case for 6 years or whatever it's been. So be it.
For sure. And we can flip on over to where old Brooksy cut his teeth, right?
Yeah,
coming through this challenge tour, coming through DP World Tour, as we are over to the KLM Open this week, formerly known as the Dutch Open. So we have seen this rendition. So the Bernardus golf, the last 2 times. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. I do believe that Ryan Fox losing this tournament for me last year might have been the worst possible golf loss of all time. I think it was 99.9% win probability for Fox before Perez absolutely stole that from him. So that was the last time we saw that. If you remember, Fox doubled the last, Perez birdied it, and then it was a par 5, and then made like 2 60-footers in the playoffs to stay alive and win. So I am not salty one bit. But that was the last time we saw it. And then Christopher Broberg had won it the year before over Matty Schmid. So we've seen it twice here. Tom, any thoughts on the Kyle Phillips design track?
Only the fact of what Kyle Phillips is known for, right? And we'll get into those kind of courses in between our player selections, I think. But he's done Kingsbarns at Dunhill Links. He's been responsible for the course that did the Nordea Masters 2014, 2015, PJ National of Sweden. He did 2017 Scottish Open golf course. He did 2016 British Masters golf course. He did so that with the Sicilian Open as well. Like, just a really big banker form of Kyle Phillips designs, which is basically what I've based a lot of my picks around this week. I don't tend to do that too often, but when you see someone that designs the same sort of courses in the same sort of style, and the players seem to turn up as much as possible, I do think you've got to go for it. So I've stuck to that kind of theory this week, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it seems in a way that you get like guys with links form without all the links tests when you get to with him. I mean, Perez has won it both, right? For Dunhill and then here. So you can make that corollary, but it does seem to see some linksy guys making their way to the top of these type of leaderboards. And we can start kind of with the opening discussion in regards to the guys coming over from the PGA Championship, Perez being one of them, and Adrian Meronk. I thought Adrian Meronk he had a very, very good week.
Yeah.
Right. He led that field in birdies, or tied, I think, with Scheffler maybe, or Brooks right up there. But to do that, finish where he is, it just kind of shows, obviously not polished enough to clean up that side of the game. But boy, if you think, Minwoo and Fox getting the membership, I mean, Meronk's going to be next, right? Like,
yeah.
He's going to have it. I mean, these guys are going to have to come over to play the Ryder Cup type of stuff. But, man, I mean, there's going to be some fields without any one of these guys because every one of them have special temporary membership and or top 10 qualify. I was tempted by Moran. Prices aren't that bad. What about you with these top two?
I was tempted by both, and it's purely like I actually thought Moronk would be slightly favoured over Perez just because of the more recent win. But when you look at what Perez has done, I mean, he won the Abu Dhabi at Yes Links, which is the Carl Phillips design at the start of the season. He's then had a 13th place finish since then at the Ras Al Khaimah, and then back-to-back top 12 finishes at the Italian Open and the PGA Championship. So back playing some of his best golf. We know he loves. He's obviously an adopted Scotsman, if you like, living in Dundee, so that's a big thing. And Moronk really just has to take advantage of these types of tournaments. Now, Perez obviously finishing 12th, took care of a lot of his Ryder Cup points for him. He's now got one of those automatic spots as it stands. And as you said, like Moronk didn't finish off where he would have wanted to based on how well he played. But so that 40th place finish could have been a lot better. And if it was, then he wouldn't be having the same sort of stresses. But now he's got to go and probably win another one of these to really solidify it. So there's plenty of motivation. I don't think travel is going to be a factor. It's only New York to Holland. That's not a big deal. So I think if anyone wanted to say to me, I'm going to take one of the two at 14-1, I'd say go ahead. Because I can't quite make my mind up between the two, I'm probably going to leave both alone, but Perez would be just edge it for me at the moment.
Yeah, I lean the Moronk side, but man, it's just because of the ball striking versus the other. But absolutely, could make a pick there. And not to say that I'm scared is the wrong word, but I have respect for them. My card's pretty deep this week with all each ways as I go here. What from the top of the board, right? Bjork, Højgaard, Rasmus, Jordan Smith, Rosner, Campillo, Ortega, who made the cut last week, Langostra, all the guys, even Houston, this hometown event or home country event, all 40-1 or lower. Anybody that you'd be siding with?
No, Bjork was obviously close just because of how good he's been. Like, it's just so consistent. But I just don't have that belief that Bjork's going to win. I don't look at Alexander Bjork and go, that's it, and it's it. I just think he's going to finish 6th or 8th or something, and it's not really what I want to play for at 25-1. So I've given Alexander Bjork a swerve there in the end. The one that was kind of tempting at the kind of 50-1 and below number was Marcus Hedekilde, who had such a good effort here on his first start in 2021. He was second going into the final round, finished 12th with a final round 75. We know recently he's had a chance to win as well, Hedekilde. He's gone off the boil slightly, and his irons are looking a bit disappointing. So it just depends how he bounces back. But I think Hedekilde of that group is probably the one that I'd be most tempted by.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense, right? I guess that's ultimately probably. I mean, we're at this test of this golf course where the last time we saw it, it was all big hitters at the top of the leaderboard, but it was probably the 3 best golfers in the field. So is it the same thing, paralysis by analysis of diving too far into that when they are just quality golfers? But Hedekilde's style of game with an more open track feels to be something in which would make sense. I mean, Wilco could probably be in that near range too. And, I'm difficult and hard on Wilco. The one that I almost pulled the trigger on was going back to Eddie Pepperell. Eddie was just fine the last time out, even though his finish didn't end up being to what his start was. I mean, he topped 10 his first event back after 3 months. If you think links, you think this type, and in the Netherlands as a whole, Eddie has been incredibly prolific. So I was intrigued there, still going deeper, but definitely somebody to think about.
Yeah, I think the best thing with Pepperell's like strokes gained chirping, I would call it, for Pepperell. He definitely, once he gets a little bit chirpier on Twitter, the game's going in the right direction. So I like the look of Pepperell. I didn't get there, but again, kind of starts my card at 60s. But yeah, all kind of the people that we mentioned so far are all good considerations. And if people want to play them, then absolutely understand.
Yep. So I'll go into this is like one of the reasons I like to bet on golf in general is just the weeds of the statistics, right? And you may go long form last 50 rounds. You might go 20. You might look into designs. You can kind of make a running at a lot of guys based off of things, but you never know when that like switch is flipped, right? Like, you just never know when somebody finds it, or it could be leading up to a tournament. And digging into PGA Championship and somebody who we've talked frequently, there was one golfer's, I guess, Friday performance that I wanted to dig into. Adri Arnaus. Adri Arnaus has been, kind of one of the top bet guys at the Italian Open, somebody who frequently finds himself on cards, and somebody that I could never do, right? You look at the game, absolute power, really good irons. Doesn't chip it with the best of them, and I think that can be alleviated here, but he could putt, and he finally broke through with a victory. So Audrey Arnaus, you can't say this about too many guys in a positive way, but did something that no one else did Friday at Oak Hill. So Audrey Arnaus faced the cut line. He was 6 over in his first round, and what he did was he went out in even par in his opening 9, the back 9, and you get to the challenge of the front 9. First 4 holes, he had a birdie on 2, then he doubled 4. And so he's 1 outside of the cut line, or 2 outside the cut line. He's to go 2 under over his final 4 holes. Hole 6 was the most difficult hole in PGA Championship history, right? Scheffler discussed that, how difficult of a hole that is. What does he do? He birdies that hole. He's one of 3 people that birdied that hole on Thursday or on Friday. And then on hole 7, which only 9 people birdied 7, he birdied 7. Both of those holes, he stuck it within 12 feet, made the putt. He missed the green on 8, and he couldn't get up and down, so he bogeys it on 9. What does he need to make the cut? A birdie, puts it to 10 feet, and he just misses the putt. Even par, misses on the number. What has Adri Arnaus done this year? What has he done much overall? It's been a tough year, right? It has really been. And to me, when his back's against the wall in a major championship, when you can go top 3 in approach in a round against the world's best like he did, I think that is an absolute great sign for him moving forward and something I think he can build off of. And you're still, I wish it would be a bigger price in some ways, but in this type of field, he's not getting much ever outside of 66. So I think he can show up at a driver-heavy course and play really well coming off of that iron and that really big Friday for me. In on Adri Arnaus 66 to 1.
Yeah, I think the thing with Adri Arnaus is like you say, is just getting into the weeds to find the positives, because we never quite know just how well he's playing or not, really, unless you're really shot tracking him like you were, because he is missing these cuts. He's kind of finishing in the 40th place and things like that. It's a weird one with Arnaus because you'd expect him to be good at links golf, and it hasn't necessarily been the case yet. We don't know. It's not a massive sample size, so I think there's still time to work on that. But yeah, I don't know with Arnaus. I really don't know. You're right in the sense that like the 66 to 1 is never going to get much bigger. It just doesn't happen for Arnaus. He's not going to be the 100 to 1 golfer unless he really was in terrible form, and then you're not going to bet him anyway. So I think you've got to focus on the fact he's had a 13th, a 6th, and a 2nd already this season. 30th in Kenya. He's very versatile. Like he had that good effort at Valderrama as well. The 2nd place finish in 2019. So I think he can do a little bit of everything. He can play when it's tough. He can go when it's low. So I think there's a player in there that doesn't quite know how to come out yet. And when he wins, it's probably going to be at 50, 60 to 1. And if you're on, then great.
Yeah, I just think he's one of those guys, and maybe you say it's about a lot of DP guys. And at 66s, we can roll right into my other selection here. So like with Guido, I'm of course going back to Guido. He's drove the ball exceptionally well. He has some type of links form. I think a course like this, when off the tee wasn't what had really been a strong suit, and now we're seeing him, thrive there. I arguably say that Guido is finding his stride, and to show up in something like this, but blindly backing somebody like Arnaus or Guido when you have prices to this, I do believe it pays off. Arnaus's top performances are following struggling events, right? Like it's not a surprise to see him do that, but can you get the right weeks is a difficult time.
Yeah.
So of course with Guido, Ben Coley is shopping the price as we speak on Guido 66s as we started the show. But I think Guido can make a ton of sense here. So him and Arnaus is where I'm starting at 66s.
Yeah, no, I understand it. As I say, every time you bring up Guido Bigliozzi, I can't necessarily find a negative, and if I did one, I'm only going to do it anyway. So, not too much to counter. Hopefully, our discussion on him last week doesn't come to fruition. If he's back in the field this week, that's always a positive sign. Um, I'm starting with Maximilian Kiefer at the 60-1 mark, and he's been 15th and 14th in his past two starts here, or the two starts at this golf course that we mentioned. And when he was 15th in 2021, he was fourth going into the weekend, so he really was banging contention. You look at the Carl Phillips design that we sort of spoke about earlier, third and 11th at the Nordea Masters at PGA National as well, which is a great sign. And he's had 16th and 5th place finishes amongst his last three starts. So I really like what Maximilian Keefer's been doing. I'm still surprised he's never won on tour. Like I always forget that he's not won. I just assume he has, and then you look at it and he hasn't. He's been in those massive playoffs and things like that. But I think one's come in, and he's going to be the type of player I think that benefits, as the tour as a whole. Sorry, he's won at the Czech Masters, isn't he? In last year, he beat Gavin Green, but like he hasn't won as much as I thought he would, because you think about the loss to Rafael Jacquelin in that playoff run and John Catlin in the Austrian as well. But I just think he should have more wins at 32, and I think he's the type that's going to benefit from just the player pool dwindling, because he's not the guy that's going to go and get into the PGA Tour unless everyone leaves next year and he suddenly finds himself as the best of the rest, right? But yeah, just everything about Max Kiefer. I think he's the type of player that gets himself in contention. He's shown it already in 2021, and he came back in 2022 and played well, more over the weekend rather than actually being in contention. But this time he's coming into form, and I like it.
Yeah. I mean, I think his last year, I mean, it's tough, right? Knowing the history of some of these guys, it, of course, molds our mindset and the way we approach the handicapping on it, which matters. But his last year has been way better than probably people give him credit for, and found himself in the mix, and just got beat out a couple of times versus letting it go. I know recently we almost bet him, right? And then we were frustrated as he had the first round lead, like
Yeah.
right there, right? Like it's somebody who definitely can make a case.
I think the worst thing for him is like where, as I've just kind of forgotten in a lapse of concentration, that like he didn't have that, like I didn't think he had that win, but it was in a 54 hole event, right? That like you just forget these things quite quickly. And actually he's a really steady player, seems to be improving over the last couple of years. And as I say, as the fields get weaker, and as we maybe have question marks over the top of the field this week coming back from a major championship, I think Kiefer benefits.
All right, so now for you to discuss Ryan Baroff's favorite golfer in the world. Why are you on Sebastian Soderberg this week?
He is the best bet of the week, I think. I think he's just in great shape, and Baroff will tell you why. I'll tell you why. But he's just got this great form of Carl Phillips designs. He was second at Yas Links earlier this season, which is obviously a Carl Phillips design. Third at the 2015 Nordea Masters, top 20 at the Rocco Forte Open, also the Sicilian Open in previous years. And he's got a top 35 at the Dunhill Links as well. You look at the current form, he's had 2 ninth place finishes in his last 4 starts. And even when he was 61st in Japan, he was 8th going into the weekend. So he's in really good form. Then you look at the fact he was 5th here last year. I don't really understand why he's 70-1. Like, this is a player that, I keep going back to it, but like, who has he beaten in his career? Like Rory McIlroy. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous to think that. I don't necessarily think that means that he's that type of quality of player. I think he's just one on a good week, but it must give you confidence going back to that and thinking, I was good enough at the European Masters to beat Rory McIlroy and all these other kind of runs that he's going to beat this week. So the couple of wins on the Challenge Tour show that he can win. He beat Langasque on the Challenge Tour, which is a decent thing to have on your list. Just a really good player, and I think he probably could have had another win earlier in Abu Dhabi, where he made a real run at it right at the end there. So love Soderberg. I think he's a great bet this week at 70-1.
Yeah, well, Sebastian, I think the other side, I don't know. What do you think of the U.S. Open qualifier? Separate notes, because that's his little blip of form. Which again, 2 rounds, not that worried. The little Linksish type of correlation. I was thinking Soderberg might be able to come through on that U.S. Open qualifying. I think it's just a good thing if guys played well. I'm not writing
Yeah.
it off if anybody
So,
played poorly,
so
right?
like that's the way I'd look at it. Like if you were making a case for someone and then they qualified to US Open, like someone like a Ross Fisher or someone that really played well that final
Yes.
day to get in, like if that's the sort of thing that you want, then great. Use it as a bonus. Don't use it as a what's the word to block you from picking someone this week, I would say.
Yep. Yep. Totally understand. I've got a pair of golfers here, one at 80 and one at 100 to 1. I think because of a late field edition, maybe this golfer is in early previews, maybe being overlooked. He's not really priced in every single book, but he's somebody who, when I see he's in the field, I am running to the odds board. And we've came close with him, almost cashed our each way at the Indian Open. And we haven't seen him, I guess he played in March, but then he kind of had some time off. I'm going right back to the well with Jaden Trace Gable, right? You look at his upside. We don't need to continue to sell people on the way he plays. He's an absolute ball striker. He's 22 years old. He finally found it on the Sunshine Tour and then continued up into, the DP World Tour Challenge Tour. He played well in that U.S. Open qualifier. I thought he was going to sneak in, and I thought it would be really cool to see how he compares to some of these bigger golfers on there. But a prolific amateur career, getting him at a price that I think is very fair, 80s to 1. So he is first one for me that I'm just going to go and back almost blindly at a price in this degree. You say Sebastian Soderberg is the bet of the week. I think it's Dan Bradbury. Dan Bradbury, triple digits, coming in after a stretch of, what would you say? Like, he probably got to breathe a little bit for the first time after a big stretch of events. And did not play all that well. He was off from March 26th till May 27th. And what's he do after that little break? He shows up with a 32nd Italian Open with incredible ball striking, and then leading the field of the top 10. Sudal Open, his approach numbers were lights out. 10th, while putting the way he did was incredible, truthfully, off of that form. Bringing in, we know he won at the Joburg Open. He hasn't really had that links style test. What he played almost nothing. I played the Irish Challenge, when he came in there. But I mean, he is he's English, right? Or is he? Yeah, he's English. So you have at least some familiarity. He had a really, really good amateur career as well. So I mean, Walton Heath, I actually thought he was going to pull that off last week at the Open. I mean, he had played the U.S. Open qualifying, which he did play pretty good in. He had played Walton Heath well in the past, which has at least some links ties to it. So anything more to sell on Bradbury?
No, I mean, I messaged you earlier and said we're betting Dan Bradbury, right? And it was based on that 100 to 1 and the fact that he led the field in approach. Like I basically made a note. What do we know about Dan Bradbury at the moment? It's the fact that he won his third ever DP World Tour start. He then comes into an event where he led the field in approach, led the field in tee to green, and now he's coming to the Dutch Open, which I don't think is really full of players that we should be worried about. I don't really understand why he's 100 to 1. Like, I think there's a lot of upside. I think we spoke about this before. Like, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago it was like 50, 60 to 1. I think we are having the same discussion. Like, he looked quite big, and I said, look, he's probably going to go out to 100 to 1 at some point. And that's what's happened. And I don't get it. I don't know why it's happened this week, based off the fact that he's been so good with his irons. And then the other thing, and this is a little bit of a stretch, but I thought it would add it in there, was the fact that he did play at Yas Links earlier in the season, the Carl Phillips design, and he was in 22nd place going into the weekend before falling away. So just the fact that he played really well for those 2 days in a really tough event in a much stronger field. Italian Open, stronger field, 32nd. He was 22nd that week with his irons. Everything about Bradbury suggests that he's a player that, I mean, he's only 23, and it suggests that he's going to be someone that's going to not go to the top. I don't know that we've seen something like that yet, but he's going to be amongst these kind of, I could see him having a Jordan Smith-esque career. And we're getting 100 to 1 about him to take him now. So, yeah, I like Dan Bradbury. It's pretty close between him and Soderberg for better week, I think.
Yeah, I think we're one win away from Bradbury on the Ryder Cup. Rumors starting to pick up a little bit,
But the thing is, like, anyone that was playing the way he plays, that people know would be getting those calls, right? Like, it's like as soon as Ollison won, it was Ryder Cup. As soon as Perez won, it was Ryder Cup. Like, it's only because people don't really know him that well that he's not yet.
Yeah. So I'm excited for him this week. I really am. Before we get into our beyond triple digit bets, make sure to shout out our audio listeners. You can find us on daily fantasy sports picks and bets, the mix, available on all different podcast platforms for us. You can rate, review, subscribe. Mayo Media Network on YouTube goes a really, really long way. Love the comments always. BK always gives us shout outs in the comments. So we love you for that, my friend. Yanni P is trying to qualify for the U.S. Open as we speak. So that would be big for Yannick there and your boy. But Tom, with that, let's go on over to the triple digits. I'm going to go first. I think we might be able to talk you into this potential bet. It's just a big, big number. And all it is 4, 5 rounds realistically of form. But man, Jens Dantorp almost, we made the comparisons for the Challenge Tour guys getting priced like Dantorp the last event, and then Dantorp almost went and won it. They're sounding off the sirens if you can hear them in the background for the Dantorp bet here, which is always a really good sign. But he does that, finishes second there, had some incredible iron shots, and even his approaches into some drivable par fours were really, really good. Forsstrom just flat out beat him. I don't think Dantorp blew it by any means. He had a shot at it on the back. And then what's he do? He shows up at Walton Heath. He qualifies for the U.S. Open. I think that's just knowing where his peak of his game was on the Challenge Tour last year, where he came up and contended right away in the DP World Tour. 130 just seems like such a good price for somebody that pops on the radar like that.
Yeah, I think I purposely left a space for someone like this, or I was going to take another guy at the top, right? And it was going to be one of Moron Corpores. And I probably feel a lot better taking another triple-digit bomb in an event like this and having a go at it. I think BK tried to call him Yenzi D earlier in Twitter, which might be a bit of a stretch. As much as I love the Yanni P and Windy Sea shouts, this one might be a bit too far. What I do like about him, Scottish Open, he was third. In 2018, it wasn't the one, so it was 2017, the one that was Carl Phillips, but I like the fact that he's done well in Scotland in the past. When we looked at the Nordea Masters, he's third in that 2015 edition, which was a Carl Phillips design. SDC Championship, I'm pretty sure that was a Linksy type test in South Africa earlier in the season as well. He was third there. Portugal, he's played well, you get some wind over there. So to me, I am going to put him in there. Northern Ireland, he's played well as well. So, yeah, Yenzi D at, 130 to 1. Peak performance. He's one of the better players. One of the better players in the field to stretch, but he's someone that we know can win. He's had 3 wins on the Challenge Tour. I think I remember saying that he was like one of the Challenge Tour types who then suddenly sort of came good last year. He had that really good stretch, didn't he? Last year, where it was between the Kazoo Classic and the Hero Open. I think we were on at the Hero Open. And I just think he's got a great opportunity to go well. So I will be joining you with Jens Dantorp. Perfect.
Yep. I think you also made an argument there for Andre Arnas, who had a second in that STC championship. So thank you.
There you go.
For furthering that for me. All right, one each left. I'll go just because it's arguably the similar type of bet in the sense that Dion Germahuis had I would say pretty strong performance. His lead into the U.S. Open qualifying, and then he comes out and is the medalist there, 9 under Walton Heath over 2 days. What can Dion do? He can absolutely drive the ball and he can putt the ball. So there's, if you're interested in Heli Kilda, who has that style of game, a Fox, right? Like those type of guys who have that ability. And also what we know of him is he had a strong amateur career, right? He had 5 wins as an amateur. He won, I think it was last year on the Sunshine Tour. And he is just 23 years old, right? So the sky is the limit. He had 2 rounds of top 5 off the tee performance last time out. Opening round was 5th, and in the final round he was 1st. And to carry that over into an incredible 36 holes at Walton Heath, it is just, and what seemingly could be a really good course fit for him if it plays out in that favor. I think 200s, these 200s over here, I think that plus a top 10 on him makes a ton of sense. Overall, just biting on a lot of form leading into a really big opportunity for him with the U.S. Open is no different than Dantorp, except without kind of some of the history that Dantorp has shown us.
Yeah, we just know more about Dan Sort than we do Gamashe, right? Like I think when Gamashe was top 10 in Japan, I think I backed him the following week in Korea, and it didn't really lead to anything. But I was surprised that he was. I think he's probably a similar price, 200 to one maybe that week. But because he just looks like he can peak at any good given time, he seems to be flashing rounds, which we like. Probably a similar sort of thing to when you bet Nick Backham earlier in the year. Like there's just enough individual rounds to be confident in giving them a chance at big prices, and that's all you really need to do. And yeah, I like Machine. To be honest, there's probably a bit more reasoning on him. I don't know. My guy is very much a course fit type thing, or a course history type thing than anything. So I'll go into Joachim Lagergren and the fact that it's just purely that Carl Phillips designs. So he won the Sicilian Open in 2017. He has 4 top 4 finishes at the Dunhill Links, which again only Kings Barnes is played is a Carl Phillips design, but an important part of it, right? That's where you got to go low. He was 18th at the Grove in 2016, the British Masters, again another Carl Phillips design, and he was actually 105th after round 1 that week, and then finished 18th. So he played really well for the final 3 rounds. I just think that he loves the links test. This isn't necessarily like when we talk about this as a links test, it's not like an open championship, right? It's probably a bit of a faux links, I think is probably what you could call it. But that's what Carl Phillips does. And it just depends on the weather as to how it's kind of affected. But I think he can play well on both types of styles on that. He is on a run of like 3 missed cuts, but it's only 4 or 5 starts ago. He was 6th in South Africa, and he's just the type that's going to spike at any given moment. We see that all the time with Lagergren. He had that second in
Valderrama, right?
Valderrama, right? Yeah, that's it. So he had the second at Valderrama, and like if he's going to randomly spike, why wouldn't it be in a test like this that we know he likes? So yes, he's missed the cut here twice, but I think it's just I never know whether course form means anything. I know he obviously repeats form a lot at Dunhill Links, but I think he just spikes and it just happens, and this would be the sort of test it would do. So at 180 to 1, I'm going to give Lagergren a chance.
I believe it was a first round leader in that kind of stretch run prior to the missed cuts too at an event. And I think it was when I tipped him because I remember it was similar. It was the corollaries leading into it. And he just plays extremely well, same courses, and you can put the lights out better than anyone. And that was the Broberg winning formula. So intrigued there. That's selections. Anybody that stuck out that potentially could be a DraftKings play or some people down the board for you, Tom?
So Shabunka Sharma's got a bunch of this kind of correlative form, and he's played well a couple of times here. So I liked him. He was in the 100 to 1 range, but I couldn't make a better case for him over Jens Dansort. Marcus Armitage was someone I looked at. I think some of the stuff that he's done recently suggests that he's going to come back and do well at some point. Dale Whitnell's got a good effort here. Andy Sullivan's played well in correlative form. So they're all there in the kind of 100 to 1 mark. Didn't really get to them in terms of betting, but I think they could do something in the DraftKings lineup. Young Won Ko has had a couple of good results recently. He's a good driver of the golf ball. I think that could be an interesting one. If we wanted some really deep long shots, and this is definitely going back, plenty of years, and it's definitely based on the Carl Phillips stuff, but both Stephen Gallagher and Nicholas Colsaerts just pop up at every single kind of Carl Phillips design that you want to see and fit the links narrative. Did you see why Stephen Gallagher hasn't been playing?
No.
They got his tour status wrong. So they basically said
Really?
he didn't qualify for the tour this year, and then it turns out that like 6 months in, he should have been playing the whole time, and they've literally like apologized to him, and apparently he took it really well. But like, yeah, that was brutal. So interesting to see how he finishes off the season. He played a couple of decent results on the Challenge Tour. Your guy Pedro Figueiredo's 1,000 to 1. He played okay recently.
Yes. I'm going to run through. I'll take the spotlight to talk through guys that were on the other tours, the smaller tours feeding into, right? We have some Pro Golf Tour, we have the Alps Tour, Challenge Tour. I was very close to betting the 18-year-old out of France. Tom, do you know this name? Axis is going to give me so much crap for this because it takes me like a while, but it's just how you spell the last name: GUILLAMOUNDEGUY. I would have thought it would have been like a Gia, but that's you don't make the Y for the double L in French. So Guillamondigai, RB calls him like the Gilda monster, but 18 years old. leading the Alps Tour in scoring average. Had won an event on the Alps Tour last year by 7 strokes. Last week he was 35th in the Challenge Tour, but that 35th included some extremely good rounds in the middle. I think he had the second best 36 holes if you included Friday to Saturday. He played in the Mauritius Open in top 25, which is a windier test, kind of a little opener type course. So I think he's 300s. You could absolutely kind of talk yourself into there. And then who else? Crocker popped a little bit in regard, I guess, completely derails what I was saying, talking about the other tours, but Crocker popped a little bit from an approach standpoint. Mike Toro, 24 years old, playing on the Alps Tour, 4 consecutive top 13 finishes, including 3 of those being in the top 10. And I think there was one other guy that had that type of form. Oh no, it was Lars Van Mayo who has 3 consecutive top 7s on that Challenge Tour, or 3 in his last 4. Those are the ones that popped of like sponsors exemptions or spot starts.
Yeah, I like it. There's I don't think we need to make too much of a case for these guys, right? Which is why it's a very short segment at the end. Like if you like what we said, a couple of bits said, Lars Van Meehow is interesting because he does just pop up with these types of tests. I think he's actually played well at this course in the past. No, so he doesn't finish well, but he's actually, I think, hit his irons well or something like that. I saw his name come up. I always get him and Darius Van Driel mixed up, so maybe it was Van Driel.
Yeah.
That
Van Driel has a good finish here, but similar type of
just maybe it's basically the same person, maybe just reincarnated twice. So
honestly,
it could be. So yeah, like it. A lot of good stuff there. I think for an event that is a week after a major, an event that's bereft of like a real star, I guess Perez and Roncar are stars at this point in the DP World Tour, but like you're not getting one of the Ryder Cuppers or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's a good event. Good bets that we put in so far. I thought you'd go with Marcel Siem. That was the one I thought that you would say. 15th here 2 years ago.
Yeah, he's looked lights out, man. He has been strong. The other, man, I mean, I thought, quick, 3 more. I thought Pablo played incredibly well at the U.S. Open. He was top 10, I think, through the 18 holes, which was awesome to see for him. And then 2 other guys that did the U.S. Open qualifying pop, plus some recent form, was Andrew Wilson, kind of out of nowhere, right? 10th there, and then I think he was 10th once again. There was someone else that did that too. I don't know, Tom. I'm going to read off half the field if I keep up this pace. So I'll shut it down at that.
Yeah, I think Andrew Wilson did pop up for me because he had, on top of that kind of 10th place finish, he'd been 35th on the Challenge Tour in Abu Dhabi a couple of weeks prior to that as well. So someone that has just randomly popped at times. I think he's a decent driver of the golf ball at his best. So yeah, interesting ones there.
Cool. Let's land it. All right. Let's review your betting card for me.
Yep. So Maximilian Kiefer 60-1, Sebastian Soderberg 70-1, Dan Bradbury 100-1, Jens Dantorp at 130-1, and Joachim Lagergren at 180-1. So a bit of a bomb card for me after a few weeks of taking some 20 and 30-1 shots.
Yeah, too many bets on the guys that are lower odds, Tom. We're going deep down the board. Adrian Nas 66-1, Guido Migliozzi 66s, Jaden Treskaper 80-1, Dan Bradbury 100, Jens Dantorp with the boys 130-1, and then Dion Hermahais 200-1. Gonna have the each ways, a top 10 on him. I'm so excited for this week, KLM Open, and then we get a stretch leading into the U.S. Open, right? We're seeing some of the guys in the U.S. Open qualifying on the state side that are DP World Tour guys. Do we get clarity yet how many spots are coming from the DP World Tour for the U.S. Open? We used to have the 10 golfers from the mini series, but I don't think that's coming this year. I think it might be just a few spots, if not one.
I haven't heard of the mini series. I think now that because Walton Heath is back as that qualifier, I think that might just be it. Like, because they had a number of years where they didn't do that, didn't they, for Walton Heath? So I wonder.
Yeah, I was just confused. Guido withdrew from Walton Heath, and like never like teed it up at all. He was supposed to. He was in the field. So, well, like Rosner and some of these other guys also did that, or also played it. So I don't know. Maybe there's just not any more spots coming besides those ones, which would
Yeah,
make probably the most sense.
I haven't seen anything unless they suddenly give an exemption to someone that kind of wins in the build up, or it might be like a Ryder Cup exemption or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't seen anything to the contrary, so I would say it's probably at the moment just those Walton Heath spots that I know definitively about.
Okay, cool. We'll come with a locked-in answer next week. But we'll wrap it up on that. Best of luck to everybody. We got some crossover here. Let's hit a winner together. Let's hit a long shot winner together this week, Tom. Good luck, everybody, and we'll catch you next week.